defeat, and I come bearing good tidings, especially for those that watched the Netflix special of Tyson versus Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. It seemed like the build up for it was a little bit more, like whoa, than the actual match. But with that said, I think if your heart's in the right space, and if depending on how you approach the situation, the whole match, whether you were there in the stadium or watching from home, I think there's so much to appreciate in it. I think there's a lot of beauty in it and glory. That's everything good in the world, right? Beauty and glory, and I think you can find a lot of that throughout the whole entire show. I wanted to touch on um, a few things, mostly how I think that like you might think, okay, this is going to be one of those. Mike Tyson really won because he was 58, and Jake Paul was at his prime at 27, and he overcame that adversity and that challenge. The fact he showed up, he won, kind of like an A for effort kind of approach, and I'm all behind that. I truly am. But I actually think that looking at the stats, there is a way you can look at it and say, well, actually, if you look at it that way, Mike Tyson's the obvious winner if you look at it that way. And it's not just like a cheeky loophole technical way. It's actually like, I think it's compelling enough. I think it's compelling enough looking at those stats to actually think, yeah, Mike Tyson won, truly, in terms of skill, in terms of efficiency, in terms of the value of conservation in a boxing match, conserving your energy and making every action you take count, like a game of warfare, where you're not just sending out a million missiles and hoping one hits, because every action you take in warfare, it's not just wasted energy potentially if you don't hit your mark, but there's actually a cost. There's a toll for every missile you fire that doesn't land. That's a wasted resource. So if I was evaluating somebody in a boxing match and genuinely trying to figure out who's the best man or woman or they them who are fighting, I would take into account that conservation of energy and that management of resources, so to speak, like action resources, and I would take into account the percentage differences of how many of the punches landed, and comparing that. And I'm just going to go right into it. When I've described this in the actual description below. If you look, okay, if you look at the score in terms of between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, in terms of the fact that I've got some notes written here that Tyson threw 97 punches, he only landed 18. Right, he landed 18 punches out of 97. Jake Paul threw 278 punches. That's a lot of missiles. Pew, 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 pew. 278. He landed 78, right? Now, if you look at it that way, and you look at the ratio of how many punches landed versus how many punches were thrown, and you do that for each competitor, then you get the score of 28.1% accuracy for Jake Paul. All right, because landing 78 missile hits shots out of 278, that's a 28.1% accuracy rating, right? For Mike Tyson, landing 18 missile strikes out of 97 is an 18.6% difference. Now, even though Jake Paul, okay, has a greater accuracy rating of actually landing, like this is a game of boxing. You're here to box your opponent, right? So even though Jake Paul actually exceeds him in the accuracy, he only does so by 9.5%, exactly. 9.5% greater accuracy than a guy who's more than twice his age, right? 58 versus 27. So I just want to point that out, that if let's say we're looking at besides moving around, because I know this, I've written down some notes here that judges look for different things. They look for ring generalship, which apparently is how one controls the pace and the style of the fight and moves around the ring. Now, taking into account what I would do, okay, there's two ways you can look at this. You look at it, it's like, it doesn't matter who you are. That could be a baby, the bodybuilder. It doesn't matter. We're scoring both the same. Or you can take some context into it and think, okay, this guy's 58. Obviously, his legs have suffered a bit. we're not going to be as critical in assessing his ring generalship and how much he moves around. Oh, but Jake Paul, look at that 27-year-old literally bouncing around and hopping around like a bunny. Oh, that's extra points. Like I personally would take that information on board, the context of the age differences, the ability, all that, and it's not a real way to know about how that converts into like statistical mitigation of how you score each competitor. But I would keep it in mind. I would keep it in mind. And then there's other things to look at, like effective aggression. Effective aggression. So there's no point just going into a boxing ring and be like, it has to be effective. It actually has to land. It has some kind of effect on them. That, and not that making them just get more angry, but actually affecting them. A judge may, as well as looking at ring generalship and effective aggression, they will look at your defense. All right. And I would say when it comes to the defense, that considering that Jake Paul threw 278 punches and he only managed to land 78, that's 200 that have been missed. That's 71.9% of the miss rate for Jake Paul, right? And keeping in mind that that Tyson has an 81.4% miss rate, but still, that's missing 200. Okay, how much did Mike Tyson miss? How many punches? He missed 79. Mike Tyson missed 79 punches of the ones he threw, and Jake Paul missed 200. Now you could say, well, yeah, but still, he threw 270. That's a lot of punches. But to me, if I was a general and I was looking to actually assess some recruit and get some recruits, or maybe I wanted to promote someone to fill up a high position, and I'm assessing based on skill, efficiency, a bunch of stuff, I'd see one guy firing 278 different missiles and missing 200 of them. And then I look at somebody else who's firing 97 missiles and landing 18 of them. And I think, well, okay, this guy's got an 18.6% rating. That's still less than the 21.1% rating, but that guy's wasted 200 missiles. That's 200 wasted actions. Just white noise of wasted energy, and in this case, the cost of that resource, right? That's 200 miss versus 79. So even though there's technically a 9.5% difference in the accuracy of landed strikes when you use the mathematical equation of looking at Paul's successful landing compared to how much they threw, and then vice versa for Tyson. When you do it that way, sure you can say 28.1%, 18.6%. But when you do it my way, the way I'm looking at this situation, literally, is this guy threw 200. He landed 278. He landed 78. He missed 200. And this guy missed 79. Okay? So basically, Mike Tyson had 60.5% fewer misses. This is to say that that Jake Paul had 153.2% more misses. Now, if I am that general and I'm assessing somebody shooting off missiles and hopping around the space like Jake Paul was doing, like I wouldn't be judging that. I'd just be looking at like the attacks, the efficiency, conservation of energy, making your actions count. And I'd be saying, wow, that's 153.2% missed more misses of shooting those missiles and hitting nothing. Okay, 153% more misses for Jake Paul and 60.5% fewer misses. I'm talking about fewer misses, like so. This is the same as saying, where's the note? Where's the note? That Mike is how much more accurate? I wrote it down. 100 more than Mike. Basically, he's basically like 152.5% more accurate, or 152%. It works out a bit different when you're doing it this way, but it's pretty much the same figure. 152% more accurate in terms of when he shoots a missile, it hits. Okay, oh, this is how many hits he made compared to Jake Paul's score. So that's how I'm looking at the situation. Your beanie would be good to take off and fart in. Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that feedback. I value that. That's cool. Thank you for that. I have to go do chores, but yeah, bye. All right, Sophie. Sophie's a cool name. I'm doing a lot of stuff with like Pandora's Box, and so Sophia was the one that opened that one up, wasn't she? And sorry to say, but I don't know if there's any hope left at the bottom of it. So yeah, I just want to point out, I don't want to just talk about winning and losing, but that aside, because I generally think, I think Mike Tyson won it. The fact that you have this, no offense to Jake Paul, but this bit of a hoo-ha hopping around. I wouldn't look at the ring generalship. I want to look at the fact that, he landed 78 out of 278. I'd be looking at the fact that Jake Paul missed 200 freaking punches. I'd be looking at the fact that he missed 200 and Mike Tyson only missed 79 missiles. When and you would think, shouldn't that factor into the score? Shouldn't that take away? Like if you look at every punch as like, okay, that's a unit of energy, like a missile, and it has a price attached. And the more you miss, you think, okay, we're going to deduct a point there, deduct a point for every missile you launch that misses. That guy lost 200 missiles. That's got to count for something compared to that guy that only lost 79. And the fact that that guy has 152.5% less misses when with actual impact compared to him, yeah, I'm going to hire that guy as in the top position. You know what I mean? And to me, shooting missiles and looking at the value of like managing those resources and shooting 50 missiles and managing your energy in that, there's no difference. I wouldn't, anyone, obviously, if you've got a guy that's more than half the age, right? Like what's 2 times 27, right? What's twice that? 54. Okay, Mike Tyson's 58, so he's more than twice Jake's age. And one way of doing the math, he's only 9.5% less accurate, right? But another way of doing the math, he is 152% more accurate because he didn't miss so many. He didn't waste so much. And that's what I see. I look at that through my eyes. If I was judging, I'd be like, I see a young guy more than half the age jumping around. I'm not going to give him extra points for having knees that are way better, obviously, than this 58-year-old's knees. I'm not going to really be as heavy in reviewing that. I personally saw Jake Paul dropping his guard quite a bit and being a little bit lax. And the whole time I saw Mike Tyson actually holding up and really like focusing, like seriousness. So even in terms of if I'm, going back to my previous analogy, if I'm looking for someone and assessing their value, right? I'd be like, well, that guy's focused. He's got his guard up the whole entire time. Points for that. You get points for that. Okay. The fact that, 200 punches did not land, I don't know how many of them were blocked. Okay. Maybe that all of them, maybe most of them. Okay. But that's a lot. That's a lot, So somebody who's probably putting their guard up and they have not been struck by 200 missiles, and they've evaded a good portion of them, right? Because I don't think Jake Paul was just punching the air for whatever reason. There would have been a reason why a punch did not connect. So I'd be going for the guy that's constantly focused like this and serious, the guy that's not wasting so much energy, the guy that's actually hitting more. And that's what I mean. There's like 152% accuracy difference in Mike Tyson's favor when you do take into account that there's yeah, he only missed 79. He only missed 79 strikes. That's the main thing. Okay. I also wanted to talk about the Amanda Sereno and the Katie Taylor thing. Okay. I personally, like I think everyone else was a bit disappointed. I've looked at the stats, okay, and all I could find, I watched it, but I didn't write down the stats. But I looked on ChatGPT and got the stats of like how many punches landed between Amanda Sereno and Katie Taylor. Right, check this out. Amanda landed 324 punches. Right, Katie Taylor landed 217. Right, So that's what is that? What's that percentage wise? My writing is absolutely terrible. 49.31%. 49.3%. All right. So Sereno literally almost did 40% more landed punches on her opponent. She boxed her opponent and landed them half of 100% more, mate. Like 49.3%. All right, almost 50% more. And yet she lost 94-95. How does that work in a game that's essentially about punching your opponent in the face, and you have a competitor that's landed 49.3% more punches than the other person, and that person loses? You know what I mean? And then that, looking at these other things that the judges look for, the ring generalship, controlling the pace and the flow. Oh yeah, I can see how Katie Taylor really controlled the pace and the flow, constantly going in. And like I saw, okay, Sereno, like just like a woman on a freaking mission, man. I mean, like fixed, like business from the get go, and advancing and controlling, because that's what it says here that they look for in the judges category. Like generalship is controlling the pace, the flow, the style of fighting. Most of the fight, I saw Katie Taylor moving backwards. The vast majority. I'm talking like 90% of the fight. I saw her moving backwards. I saw Amanda Sereno, advancing aggressively. That's the other thing they look at is aggression, effective aggression. Well, I would say that 49.3% more punches successfully landing than your opponent is pretty effective aggression. Wouldn't you, Judge? I'd say that in ring generalship, Sereno was clearly the one dictating the flow, unless it's actually Katie Taylor's strategy to walk backwards, to constantly be on the defense. Yeah, that's my offensive strategy, to move away from my opponent as they are advancing very staunchly in my direction. That's my strategy. Give me points for that, Judge. And then if I'm not doing that, literally the 10% where I'm actually advancing, I'm either standing still. I don't really advance that much. But if I do advance, I don't do it with my legs. I don't do it like Sereno's doing. I don't charge her and be dominant and aggressive. No, no, no. Too full on for me. If any part of my body is going to go forward, it's going to be my head. And I'm going to lean forward. I'm just going to lean forward a lot. I'm not necessarily going to do that with my head, but I'm going to do a lot, and I mean a lot, of leaning forward and down and putting my head just a little bit out there. You know what I mean? So even in terms of ring generalship, I don't think pacing backwards away from someone who's clearly dominating, who's clearly the bigger aggressor. I don't think moving back is in any light a an aggressive strategy. Yes, she gets points for defensive. I think Katie Taylor does exceptionally well at showcasing what a defensive fighting stance looks like for as long as the fight happened, and take away maybe 30, maybe take away a minute or two, because there were times where, like I said, she didn't really advance. Fuck all. Oh, hello, app 2814. Are you human? There were times where she stood there, but and she didn't really advance that much. So looking at that, like even looking at the stats, the fact that Amanda Serena landed 49.3% more punches than Taylor. The fact that she showed greater ring generalship, she literally commanded the pace and the tone and style, and affected the style of the fight, because she literally caused Taylor, okay, I keep misforgetting Katie Taylor, to be on the defensive for the majority of the match. So that's literally, the judges do judge for that. All right, ring generalship, affecting the style and pace and the flow and the positioning of the fight. Well, like I said, why do you get points for moving backwards defensively? Okay, clearly Sereno was the one dominating the ring and deciding the flow and the style and the positioning. She was more aggressive. I'd say when it comes to actual aggression and striking, even in terms of impact, I'd say it's almost pretty much even footing with Katie Taylor. I think Katie Taylor got a few more hard hits in there. But with that said, I think Serena still got quite a few as well. Maybe not as much. But considering that it wasn't like drastically less, like they both were pretty even, and she landed 49.3% more punches. I think that well and truly makes up for any difference of strong, powerful, clean strikes, right? Which is also something else that judges look for. They look for like clean punches and clean, effective strikes, which I know that Amanda Serrano did not, um, she didn't falter there, right? So I don't know. I don't know how the scores even came close when literally one person, she was like a bend. Like I'm trying to think of something funny that bends, like a floppy something that bends back and forth. A dildo comes to mind, but I'm not gonna compare Katie Taylor to a dildo. But she's very good at moving backwards in defense and flopping her body forward. I noticed that. And good at punching on occasion when she's like, I'm gonna just let it all out. And then she was actually really good. I don't know how she won. I don't know how she won. I think Amanda Serrano wins with ring generalship and controlling the pace and positioning and the flow of the match. Clearly, clearly. Clean punching, it's nearly at the same level as Katie Taylor, but she lands 324 compared to 217 punches. So Amanda Serena landed 49.3% more. So I think that puts her up quite a bit. Effective aggression. I mean, if you had to like say, okay, choose an animal to represent each person in the fight, and you had like a wolf, like a pissed off wolf stalking the prey, and you had like a cowardly little bunny or turtle that's really good at retreating backwards and popping their head out like that, I wouldn't say that Sereno was the turtle. Would you? I'm listening. Oh, Easter Island heads. Cool. You're taking notes. So that's my view on that, and I think it's an interesting event. Getting slightly philosophical, it's an interesting event because I noticed this, like, even with the Mario and Abel fight, Mario Barrios and Abel Ramos fight, um, which ended up being a draw. Okay, and it's interesting because I think that Barrios was, well, Mario was like the favorite in that match, and it kind of looks like he might lose, and it might be a bit of controversy with some people thinking like, how was that a draw? Which I think was awesome. But like you look at that fight, right? And the fact that it was a draw and there was such high emotion and this strong crowd favorite, right, comes in like through this awesome introduction in Mario Barrios, and then he starts kind of going on the back foot and copying a few serious blows and causing some real serious heavy doubt in the minds of the viewers, and you can feel it in your heart. And then in the end, it ends up being a draw, somehow, right? They think, wow. So it's like, well, who won there? Because this whole entire event, it's interesting because there's three fights that stand out, right? Mario versus Abel, Amanda Serena versus Katie Taylor, and obviously Tyson versus Paul. And all of them make you question the nature and the essence of winning in different ways. So take the Mario and Abel one, right? They both fought, they both gave it their all. They ended up getting draw, but Mario got to keep his title. Still undisputed champion, right? So in this sense, avoiding a loss for him was a win. So you could say that avoiding a loss is can be tantamount to winning. And to that degree, I would say that in a way, the fact that Mike Tyson, someone that's more than double Jake Paul's age, and hasn't been in the ring for how long, like properly, the fact that he didn't get defeated by TKO or knockout or what have you, I'd say, like he evaded losing in the same way that Mario Barrios avoided losing, and because he got a draw, he got to keep the belt. I get that the score was different, but I actually contend the score. Like I said, I disagree with the scoring of the Mike Tyson versus the Jake Paul match. Like I said, I'd much rather go for a guy who didn't, you know, miss 153.2% of their fired missiles. I'd rather the guy that has 60.5% missed missiles, fewer misses in comparison. Just comparing the amount that's missed, just comparing on a level of assessing skill, efficiency, managing your resources. Mike Tyson actually missed, like I said, 60.5% fewer misses. No, sorry, 152% fewer misses in sorry, I'm messing this all up. The difference between how much Mike missed and um and Mr. Paul is 60.5% less wastage, less wastage of resources. I'd rather go to that guy. I'd rather go for the guy that's standing guard the whole time and taking his business seriously and not firing 1,000 missiles and then hitting with more missiles, but ultimately percentage-wise wasting 153.2% of them. Okay, more. Okay. So the difference isn't 60.5. I'm looking at this number and it's messing with my head. I've made a mistake here. But he wasted 153.2% more missiles. Like, why would I want to go for that guy? The guy that's dropping his guard and shooting out more. Why would these scorecard people, the judges, be looking at that behavior and be like, well, yes, he's younger and he's able to just pump out 1,000 things. It is like content creation, it's like, it's not about skillful measuring and then landing, because in that respect, Mike Tyson is 152% better, has better accuracy in that sense. Far less misses when you look in absolute terms of how many this person missed, how many they missed, and then compare it. It's 153.2% more misses for Jake Paul. So, yeah, I wouldn't be that impressed and be like, well, this guy's younger, he can throw so much more out there, and look, he's connecting more because he's just going like this and this and this. I'd go for the guy that's measuring up and taking his job seriously and conserving his energy. So I think Tyson won if you're looking at it in terms of only in terms of skill and managing your resources and efficiency, and not losing. So winning by avoiding a loss. He didn't get knocked out, is what I mean. So only if you care about skill and efficiency in boxing and actually landing your missiles instead of just doing a content creator strategy and pumping out 1,000 and then landing obviously with a little bit more and only 9.5% accuracy difference. Like I said, there's only a 9.5% accuracy difference in Jake Paul's corner. Okay, when you compare the percentage of how many he landed out of how many he shot, only 9.5% more compared to how much Mike Tyson landed out of how many punches he shot. But like I said, he missed 200. Paul did. And Tyson missed 79. So when you look at it through that lens, it's like, well, he's far better at managing his resources. He's 153%, 152.5% more accurate and better at managing and landing or missing less. Okay. So that's my take on that. And to me, a 152.5% difference in Mike's favor of having that much less misses trumps 9.5% accuracy rating, ascertained just by looking at the ratio between how many one has attempted and how many has landed, and then comparing the differences there. Because, like I said, Tyson got 18.6% accuracy, Paul got 28.1. It's only a 9.5% difference. To me, 152.5% difference is way, that just trumps it. Don't you reckon? 152 trumps 9.5%. Like the guy that had 152.5% less misses, which is the same as saying 152.5% more connection of punches, is better than somebody who's got a 9.5% difference when you take the score of them, how many thousands they've chucked and how many of them landed. You know what I mean? Because then, of course, it's a young man's game if you're assessing it that way. Why would you assess it that way? At somebody who's frivolous at just throwing the punches, and that I'd be looking at like, well, you're just wasting a lot of punches too. Why do they not have points deducted for missing punches? If they did, if they factored in resource management and being efficient, okay, and skillful and measuring, Tyson, like I said, 152.5% more lands, okay, less misses, so more successful connects. That to me is way more meaningful than someone who just happens to be able to chuck out a lot more hits and then comparing within his own score of how many he tried and how many he connected. He has a 9.5% increased accuracy rating. Who gives a shit about that? Like I said, if I was hiring these guys, I'd hire the guy that missed 79 punches, 79 missiles, not the guy that missed 200. That's not fucking efficient management at all. So that's the case I'm making there. That's a simple case. And the fact that he didn't lose by TKO, like he didn't lose, it's about score. That's what determines who won. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the score. I'm not really counting ring generalship as much. I think Mike gave it his all with what his body could do for him. So I'm not going to be too hard on that. When it comes to clean punching, yeah, you could say obviously Paul landed 78 punches and Tyson landed 18. So if you're looking at in terms of effective aggression, then definitely, Jake Paul trumps to a difference of 60%. So 60% more effective, at that. But then I'd still, you could do the math, and I think it would wind up in Mike's favor. If you did the math and thought, and in different ways that you're assessing this, and you said that Jake Paul, okay, 60% more lands, but 153.2% more misses, right? And you factored all in. I mean, you take out 60% more lands out of 150% more misses, and that leaves what, 133. What does that leave? It still leaves more misses on his part. It still leaves more of a negative score. 60% in your favor, Mr. Paul, doesn't wipe away your 200 missed shots, your 153.2% more misses compared to Mike Tyson. So that's my case there. That's what I wanted to say about that. And I also wanted to touch on what else here? Yeah, just the nature, because I noticed some just my personal thoughts watching. Okay, I noticed people booing in the audience with Mike Tyson. I'm thinking, why are you booing? Like, what did you expect? Like, and this is where it's like winning is an interesting thing and losing, because you got Mario versus Abel, like the Mexican Americans, and even though it's a draw, it's like nobody won, but the champion won because he retained his belt because he avoided a loss, which is a win if you've got something to lose, right? This is like philosophy on winning, right? So like avoiding a loss if you've got something to lose is kind of a win. Like I will guarantee you, all right, that that Mario would feel a lot worse if he actually lost that match versus the fact that he didn't win, but he still keeps the belt, right? And the fact that it's a draw means it's matched. So like they both kind of won is how I like to see it. Like they both gave it their all, Mario and Abel in that fight. But I'd still say that the champion kept the belt, right? He avoided a loss when it matters when you're champ. So he won in a way. But they both won in a way. But nobody won in a way. And what the fuck is winning? It's so arbitrary, right? I'd say that as Sereno versus Katie Taylor, even when looking at it from a scoring point of view, like I said, I don't know how Taylor won. She didn't control the ring. She didn't control the pace, the positioning. Serena was clearly the aggressor for the whole entire fight. Like vast majority, like 90%, I'd confidently bet my left testicle for 30 grand, which apparently you can sell it for if you guys ever get in a bit of a pinch. You just have a bit of a pinch. But I digress. I have no idea how Katie Taylor, even from the scoring statistic point of view, came out on top when all she can do is bend back and defensively. That's not controlling shit. That's just like controlling, not getting hit by this very aggressive bull that's challenging you. And then also lean forward and hug the person a lot and break up what would have otherwise been a non-stop intense battle the way that Sereno wanted it. Sereno wasn't really grappling that much. She was just fucking staunch, man. And Taylor was like, I'm going to walk back a lot. I'm going to put my head forward like this and lean forward and hug you a lot and just stop the flow of action because that's going to give me points and make me win this, apparently. And it worked. It worked. If you're less aggressive in the ring and you spend more of your time walking backwards and boxing and or leaning forwards with your head and grappling with the person and breaking the flow, apparently that's what makes you a better boxer in boxing. Moving away from the action and breaking up the action a lot and using your head more than your fists. Not more, but more than you really should be using it, that makes you a better boxer. So even though Katie Taylor won, once again, philosophically looking at this, it's like, but did she really? You know what I mean? Even the speech afterwards, like Katie Taylor gave a speech like, she reminded me of the Pikey from Snatch. She's like, yeah, I gave it my best, and she's a fucking good fight. I champion hard for you, and I'm the trying to do it, and you know, this is all we can do at the end of the day. We try hard, and I'm just like, what the fuck are you saying? But even in terms of the speech, and in terms of connecting with the audience, and a send off, and having what you're saying translated in a way that's meaningful and connects with, and it builds into a moment of like, yes, I won this, and I have something cool to say, and people are cheering, and they're applauding what I said. I'd say that was a big fucking loss, for Miss Taylor, right? I'd say that Amanda's little speech, even though her manager, whoever that guy was, kind of got a little bit like, oh, I said something then and had a bit of a rise to the audience and connected with the people a bit. I like that feeling. Actually, I'll take the mic back. I want to do that a little bit more. And then fucking did that a little bit, right? Kind of hogged the light a little bit at the end. Besides that, and even at the end, he did really well with his final message. That was a good finish. But I think Serena, her speech, um, that I don't know, it just felt like she was more of a winner, even in the speech she gave. It's so sad that like it's a dad's birthday coming up, and like that's heartbreaking. Like she won. She was the aggressor. I literally asked ChatGPT, what do judges look for in boxing? And in every category, she won. Clearly. Especially the ring generalship and controlling the flow and the style of the fight and the pacing of it. Like she controlled fucking everything in it. And her effective defense was literally constantly being offensive and causing the opponent to constantly be on the defense, which was Taylor. But I guess constantly being on the defense gets you more points than constantly being on the offense. So that's really disappointing. So you could say she lost technically, but then, like, did she? Did she really? I mean, none of them lost their belts or anything. It was about, I guess, prestige. And that's the thing. Does your prestige come down to what three people think holding fucking pieces of paper with texts in their hand? Like, what if one of those people called in sick and someone else came in the next day? Like, we'd have a different winner, right? So I think all of that's really superficial. And when I look at stuff like that, I don't really watch boxing usually, but I like to get into observing. Mike Tyson's in it, right? And it's interesting with the influencer thing. So I wanted to check it out, and I see it for what it is. And to me, it's like I see people giving it their all. I see Mike Tyson giving it his all. I see him demonstrating actual better skill and management than Jake Paul. I see Jake Paul getting a bit cocky and a little bit like dropping his guard, and you know, yeah. So, and like I said, way less misses. Like Mike Tyson, I have to repeat the number for new people that come in case they missed it. Mike Tyson, 152.5% better accuracy than Jake Paul in terms of missing the punches. Less. All right. Because Jake Paul had 153.2% more, right? That's insane. So like I said, I think statistically looking at it like through the lens, if I was a scorer and let's say someone was sick and I replaced someone for the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight, I would be looking for someone who's not sending out missing 200 missiles. I'd be looking at this guy who's keeping up his guard, who's actually missing far less and making his shots count compared to the other person and compared to how many times they've missed. And looking at it in that sense, like I said, 153% fucking trumps 9.5% better accuracy when you're comparing how many have landed out of how many you've shot, right? So I think on a skill level, Tyson won that. I think on a heart level, he won that. I think Mario and Abel on a heart level, they both won and deserve the draw. But I'd say they both won. And I'd say that the champion in that won twice because he got to keep his belt and he avoided losing it. I'd say that Amanda Serena versus Katie Taylor, I'd say Amanda won, hands down, looking at it from a technical standpoint. Clean punches, effective aggression, ring general, and controlling the pace and positioning and defense. The only downside for Amanda Serrano is maybe more of a lack of defense because she was continually on the offense successfully for a lot of it, successfully enough to cause the winner of the match to spend most of the match, or the match as the bout, moving away from her aggressively to match her aggression coming at her, right? Or to hug her and put her head forward. Like, I have no idea who she fucking paid off for that result. Um, I don't know if they can reverse these things, but like, yeah, there should be something where people can be like, yeah, yeah, we're pushing to get that reassessed. Maybe getting like some new judges, because somebody was fucking hitting the cush at that fight. And yeah, it kind of it gets me thinking, going into winning and losing now, because I've made the point, I've done the stats. All right, I've done the stats. With why I think Mike is way better fighter, way more skillful, not wasting 200 misses and only missing 79 strikes compared to Jake Paul's missed 200 strikes. I mean, that 153.2% less lands compared to how many misses Tyson had. I'd say Jake Paul really, he doesn't really shine there. When it comes to landing punches in the art of boxing, I'd say that Mike Tyson is 153.2% better looking at the stats. So I think and like I said, it's all arbitrary. Like, I'm just going to say Mike Tyson won. I'm just going to say Serrano won. And I'm going to say Mario and Abel both won, because that's truth for me. That's the reality. When I watch these things, it's not about who happened to show up this Friday or this whatever day it is, and judge and what did they choose. Like, to me, who's won in a competition of talented performers or athletes or competitors isn't about the fuckers in the chairs watching it. It's about the performers. You know what I mean? Firstly, it's about what I think. It's about my connection, and like, yeah, like if I connect better with someone else, and in my true perception, I feel they gave it more than the other person. And that's the thing. Everyone's got different criteria. Some people might say, yeah, they gave it more. Maybe they didn't have the same technical skill, but they gave it more heart. And for one person, that might be more important. But like I said, in terms of technical skill, it's hard with Tyson, because, like I said, the fact is that there is a 60% difference of lands in terms of when you're looking how much each of those opponents, Tyson and Paul, landed the punches they attempted. 18 out of 97, 78 out of 278. That's 60% more lands, right? So in terms of that, in terms of like how many times did you hit the guy? Yes, but like I said, that's only 60%. But he missed 153% more times. He hit with 60% more missiles, but he missed with 153.2% more missiles. So how you do the math on that, whether it matters that people are taking actions that fail in a game or a sport where taking successful actions counts. Like, if this was AFL and we had a guy, let's say a guy had 60% success rate of kicking goals, right? But then let's say he had 153% more misses compared to the other team, and the average of the other team, each player, the average misses for each player. If this person had 153% deficit compared, I'd be like, mate, yeah, I don't know. It depends how you look at that. But winning and losing, I think it's a subjective thing. And even with this, looking at the score thing and looking at what they should be judging for, I disagree with some of the results. I think a lot of people might. So really, it's like, fuck them. We can just say fuck them. I'm going to say Tyson won. I'm going to say Tyson won because Jake dropped his guard way too much. Way less skill. Tyson took it way more seriously. Okay, when it comes to actually doing, if I'm evaluating someone's skill, I'm evaluating it based on how hard are they trying, and how much good form are they showing. And to me, Mike Tyson showed way better form. He didn't miss 200 times. He missed 79 times, right? Um, and he landed 18 times. So that's the thing. Like, and who's to say whether Jake Paul's going to be feeling those 18 punches a lot more than Tyson might be feeling the 78? Who knows, really? Um, But I think it's a subjective thing, and that's the thing. I did a bit of wrestling for a group called WZWA, the Warzone Wrestling Alliance. It's a kind of like a blend or fusion between backyard and professional wrestling up here in Western Australia. It stopped running 7 years ago, and it originated from a backyard fed like over a decade, longer than a decade before, when I was like a little teenager, like 13 or so. And I remember back then I met these guys and wrestled with them and trampolines and socks, and then I believe it was like 14 years had passed or 15 years, and this guy gets in touch with me who ran the thing. He's like, "Hey man, we got an event coming up. You should come." I end up coming, end up having a match, flipping off a 15-foot wall through a table. Got the most hardcore champion of the year award with plaques, and they have the shirts. They got the mugs. Like it's a proper professional. No longer kids in socks and trampolines, but I'm talking like a wrestling ring, like proper with ropes in a backyard. I was a hardcore wrestler, the Ultra Violent Maniac. Feel free to look it up. Ultraviolent Maniac, WZWA, Warzone Wrestling Alliance. It's some pretty hardcore freaking shit. Flipped off a 2-story building through a table. The point is that, my story arc, I lost every match. I had about 13, 14 matches. And by my own choice, I wanted to lose. And even at the end, when I finally won, the GBYWN Hardcore Champion, the Global Backyard Wrestling Nation Hardcore Championship, and they said to me, "You can win the match. You can win. You can keep the belt, and you'll be the last person because they're closing down the Fed." And they did. They closed it down 7 years ago, and would have been the last reigning champion. But in my mind, I'm like, well, I wouldn't feel like I won then, because I feel like Chaos, who the guy I was shooting with, who'd been in Warzone Wrestling Alliance for that whole time that I wasn't. Like I just showed up for the last year that they were alive, and this guy was breathing in and sharing that blood, sweat, and tears with his brethren for the previous decade or so. So I was like, if I win technically because I've earned it or whatever the case, I don't know why anyone would let me win. It doesn't feel right. It feels like the audience would be disappointed. And that to me, I wouldn't feel like I'm winning anything. I just have a belt that shows that, like, cool, I deserve this decision or negotiated somehow decision for me to win this belt. But what would it mean if the crowd is actually kind of a little bit upset about the win and thinking like, oh man, Chaos should have won. He's our brother. He's been the hardcore guy for the last decade. I just ended up with the belt because I was fucking insane. If you watch the videos, it's on the same channel. WZWA is a few montages I've made of the most insane moments, like light tubes, everything except flaming tables, essentially. But the point is that, before I won the belt and before I decided to lose the belt at the final show, I lost it because the crowd didn't expect it. And to me, giving the crowd an experience and one that's unpredictable and one that's rewarding, especially at like the final penultimate climax of everything that we were doing, that meant more to me than just technically leaving with the belt. And I hope for the competitors at the Netflix, the boxing thing. I hope for Sereno and Tyson. Like I think Tyson's on the same page. And it's like it's about what it means for him. And that was a very organic thing that he said, a very honest and authentic moment where he's like, I don't care about other people and what they like, making them proud, essentially. Like, I do it for me, maybe his family, you know what I mean? Um, and for me, it was different than that, I guess. Like, I guess it was doing it for me because I'm doing it for me in the sense of like, for me, doing what's best for everyone just feels right. Because I'm not a me person. I'm a bit of a we person, not a me, bit of a we, bit of an I person, right? So I thought, give it to the people. I drop the belt. Chaos wins the belt. Everyone is happy. That makes me happy. But before that, I actually lost like 11 matches in a row, right? At my own insistence, every single match from when I went there. My matches were awesome, super hardcore, and people look forward to it. And I became a bit of a crowd favorite for some of the people there, the younger people, I think in particular. God, I used to watch Backyarders when I was young, like those crazy videos, and to think I became one of those corrupting influences, but I digress. I chose to lose every single match because, and this is still me exploring this idea of winning and losing. Like, to me, with wrestling, what it meant for me was like the story that you're telling and how the people connect the story. My story, my arc, in short, ended up being that I I come back to this group really arrogant and like, yeah, oh no, a bit of a crowd favorite to begin with, and I lose a couple of times, and I had my orbital bone fractured in my second match. I had a guy on my third match like knee me right at the start of the match. Like he hits me with a tonga, like this weapon. I lean forward and he puts his fingers on my head and lightly pushes me down, but it's enough for me to move my head down as his knee's coming up, and it cracks my orbital bone, and I got pressure there constantly. Um, and that happened after I got my head smacked with a ring apron and flung back, and then smashed my head onto a concrete that was embedded into the ground, onto the edge of this concrete block, and had stitches, concussion. Continued the match, hardcore style, and then went to the hospital, got stitched up, went back, and then wrestled again in the main event, doing swanton bombs and shit, like head first. Wasn't smart. So I had a few injuries and whatnot, but the storyline was that, after these first few injuries that I had and losses, I started like it started influencing my health. Like I played into my story, and I started getting really desperate, became even more ultra violent, even more maniacal, and was and it kind of became more heel, more arrogant, like blah blah blah. I'll do anything to win. Really bitter, really bitter about losing all the time, about not being able to pull a victory under my belt. And then after losing more, I snapped. And then Halloween came, and I wrestled as um what was it? Some kind of like I was still me, just Phoenix, but I had like a panda face paint on, and I came out to that song Panda, 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 and I was a death panda, kind of like a zombie panda and a big like a panda onesie, and in a hardcore match. And that match, I was like, I'm gonna lose on my terms. And it was the weirdest stipulation. I've never seen it done before. Not to say it hasn't, but I was so convinced that I started off with a thing saying, if I'm destined to lose, if I'm destined to become extinct, just like like the panda was fucked. If it's my destiny to be fucked, then I'm going to be fucked on my terms. I'm going to lose this match. I'm going to lose this match on my terms. And I tried. I tried getting counted out, disqualified by using weapons when I wasn't supposed to in that match. I tried getting the guy to put his arm over me and pin me, and yelling at the ref, count, count. And every time I use a weapon, the opponent like, no, 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 like stop the ref from like disqualifying me. Like, no, no, it's not ending like that. And the ref would be like, this is now a no disqualification match. This is now an Extreme Rules match. And then like he'd apply like a wrist lock, and I tap out, and the guy like, no, 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 that's not. I'm gonna win this. And the referee would talk to someone, and then they'd announce on the microphone, this is now a no submission match. And this kept happening. I kept trying to lose on my terms because I was so convinced, because I had this run of bad luck and losses, that I was destined for failure. And because I believed that, then the only way I could win is to decide how I lose on my terms, right? Which is an interesting little thing itself, and you can explore that. Of course, I ended up losing on the other guy's terms. Like he beat me, and after that, that was like my death kind of, and I ended up coming back more face. I'm more and more of a good guy, and moved back into this whole like it doesn't matter about winning. I'm not going to be fixated on winning anymore. I remember why I came here in the first place, because I'm passionate about wrestling, and I just kind of came from that space. Like I'm here just because of my passion, and then yeah, then I won. I won a fatal four way for the number one contendership for the hardcore title. And then I had the match after that, the title match next month, and the pay per view, and then won that, and then defended it once successfully. And then I was meant to defend it for my final third match against Chaos, the same guy that broke my face. And originally I was meant to win. And like I said, mate, you win it back. And his grandpa made the belt and everything as well. So, um, yeah, but I ended up with the belt anyway. He gave me the belt at the end or something. The point is that like I went through this really interesting storyline and really explored the nature of winning, like, and losing, like I said, to the point where I'm trying to win by losing, by deliberately losing on my terms. I'm winning. Um and at the end, even though I could have won the match and kept the title and been the last reigning hardcore champion forever, perpetually because the federation was closing, WZWA, which apparently they've been approached and someone's interested because they've got so much history, like so much rich history, and they're amazing characters, like real characters, um, like real brotherhood and great wrestling and great storylines. There's so much passion and time invested in it, and just the whole entire setup and the editing, and like I said, like the merch. And so apparently someone from Netflix has approached and maybe looking into doing like a little documentary or series showcasing it. So that's cool. Um, but Warzone Wrestling Alliance WCWA, you might hear about it at some point. And yeah, but to me, I feel like that final match I had at Resolution 5, I believe it was. I feel like I feel like everyone won. You know what I mean? Even though like I ended up choosing to lose because the crowd expected me to win, and I didn't want that. Um, because the crowd, I think, got into it more and they appreciated the ending more. That made me feel like a winner. So winning is an interesting thing. I think like what Tyson said, I really couldn't get behind that anymore. That winning is really about what it means to you. What your criteria, not the criteria of other people and their expectations, not the criteria of other judges. Like maybe technically in the history books, they will decide whose name goes down. But I think written in the hearts of the people, and in the memory, in the minds as memories of of the people. Um, I think sometimes the winner that moves through time is different to who's in the books. And anyone aware of Tartario would know about that. Um, I think when it comes to heart, I think when it comes to overcoming adversity and fighting someone more than half his age in peak form, 27, peak fucking physical form at 58 years old. Not missing 200 times like Jake, but missing 79 times. Like I think that shows he's way more skillful at controlling. Like, um, yeah, and less wasteful. Like not as skillless when it comes to managing his strikes successfully and effectively executing them. It depends how you weigh it up. That's using absolute terms. Um, and yeah, I think that's what that's the end I want to kind of finish on is that like I said, even with the judges that decide what's written down, like if any one of those judges was replaced with anyone else, you'd have a different outcome. So I wouldn't take too seriously the scoring at the end. I've given you my personal reason why I think Mike's more skillful. Yes, Jake Paul landed 60% more strikes, but he missed 153.2% more compared to how many Mike missed, right? So, and I do the math on that in terms of skill, not just for punches landed and the aggression there and effectiveness there, but also how much has been wasted and not successful, right? And 153.2% will and truly trumps 60% in Jake's favor. 153.2% missed, like more misses compared to the misses of Mike Tyson. Um, yeah, I mean anyone can, like I said, anyone can fire out 278 missiles and hit 78 times, or measure it up and shoot 97 and hit 18 times. It's seen as far less, but like I said, he was one. Mike Tyson is still 153.2% more accurate. Um, in the sense of when you're comparing the misses with each other, when you compare it, how many did he miss? How many did he miss? Literally, he missed 200, and Mike only missed 79. All right, 153% difference. So yeah, it's up to you there. I'd say it's pretty tight, but I'd say when it comes to skill, form, resource management, and um, what's the term? What's the term? Efficiency. I'd say Mike is a clear winner. Not just A for effort, but and ultimately it comes down to you and it comes down to them. So I hope you guys enjoyed it anyway, and sorry for the long, endless rant, but I think it's important. I don't like I said, I don't know why the people booed. I listen to the people booing. I'm like, dude, he's here. They're doing the thing. You know what I mean? It's kind of sickening. It's kind of gross. The commentators like when Serena was bleeding from the eyebrow, and you could hear that the female commentator, sorry, I don't know her name, will remember it, but she was like, she's bleeding, like kind of concerned, right? She's like, she's bleeding, and the other, like, I think it was like the African American commentator was like, yeah, she is. I'm like, people are getting off. And then some other guys, like one of the commentators, is like, I think it's good that it's only 2 minute rounds because before we did 2 minute rounds, there's far less knockouts in the women's division. Like, yeah, we just want to see the blood. We just want to see the knockouts. We want to see. And like I said, I've had concussions during wrestling, and it affects you. It affects you. Affects you long term. It does. But hey, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch people getting brain damage, right? It's fun to watch people getting crippled. It's fun to watch people bleed. Um, and even though like I'm watching Mike Tyson in there and he's trying, I'm just like getting tears because I'm proud of him. I'm like, fuck yeah, man, this is sick. And I'm just watching Jake act like a clown, and somehow he won. Just like Katie Taylor won. Maybe he can jump around like a bunny shooting millions of missiles that miss. Like just while fucking while Katie Taylor just kind of does a little bend back, bend forward in the center of him running circles. That could be nice content. You could do a little thing together and put that up. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. It was kind of gross. And then not only the bleeding comment and someone saying, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah." I've already made the comments about all the comments that were kind of like, ugh. There was one other comment that was like, ugh. Just it highlights the sadism and the general disregard and in a non-sexual way, the objectification of the fighters, like to the point where we no longer see them as human. We no longer see Mike Tyson and that like we're booing, and it's like you have a rising star in Jake Paul, and you got this legend, an ancient legend, right? Mike Tyson, like this god, like in the ring, and people are booing. Like that's part of the history books on that occasion, on that date, 16th of November, 2024. The people booed in Mike Tyson's first match in like over 20 years or so. And I'm just like, well, that really shows the criteria of the people. That really shows what they're looking for. To them, it probably doesn't even matter about winner or loser. It's just animalism, isn't it? Bit of feeding into that desire, that morbid, like the thing we see when someone's starting a fight in town, and the girlfriend be like, "Yeah, fight, fight!" Fucking getting off and watching the shit getting wet from seeing her man in acts of violence. Not all women, some women. I've seen that happen where they all instigate violence in the street just because it's a primal thing. I'm a bit less primal. I looked at the whole event and I think I saw a lot of heart. I saw a lot of heart between the Mexican Americans. So much heart. Between the women's match at the end, like the co-main event, so much heart, especially from Sereno. A lot of cowardice in Katie Taylor. I don't know how she won, and a lot of a lot of heart in Jake Paul. Even Jake Paul. I think he did go a bit easy. I couldn't help but kind of pick up and think maybe part of it was like I don't want to hurt this guy, out of genuine compassion, maybe, or empathy. But I think another part of it was his awareness of like people booing, and yeah, I think part of the whole being a Logan, right? And not being a Logan, being a Paul. That's why I always pause before I say Jake Paul, because I think Logan Paul first, because he comes to my mind first, because WWE, right? Even though I don't watch it that much, I prefer to wrestle more than just watching it these days. But it's been a while. It's been a while. Um, but yeah, I think part of why he went easy and at the end was like respectful and totally changed his tune is damage control. I think he was aware that like, yeah, being a Paul is like it's cool to be a little bit controversial and people are a bit like, like he calls himself the problem child because he creates a stir with people. He prides himself. That's part of his brand now. He's incorporated what might have been like a bit of a sensitivity for him, dealing with like why are people hating me? I'm sure there would have been a part of the process somewhere from birth up where he started getting exposed to these reactions and he didn't like it. But now he's kind of wrapped himself up in that, like Batman, and it's like his strong suit, right? It's like his actual superhero emblem, problem child. I piss people off and all of this, but I don't think he wanted to piss people off that much. Like I think he realized pretty quick. Oh, when he saw Mike Tyson like getting gassed in the ring for not for not much, right? I think it was like, oh, I didn't really think this through. I think he started to process the reality because he went in there with a lot of ego and attitude and being a sassy little bitch, and then left being like, respect, I love you, man. Yeah, you, and pulling back his punches and not really, because I think he knows if he actually did, it would have just been somebody attacking an old gassed out man, an older, um, and yeah, so I think part of it's damage control and PR, um, managing that public perception. And but still, nonetheless, it was nice for him. It was nice for him to show his respects and the heart in that. And for whatever reason, yeah, I'm only speculating here. I'm only speculating. And Mike Tyson, I think if anything, he gained more respect. I don't see anything to boo. Um, you know, I think when you take into account their ages and everything, like I'm pretty impressed that any way you cut it, one way of looking at the accuracy rating, there's only a 9.5% advantage towards Jake Paul. Another way of looking at accuracy rating, there's 150, it's 152.5% rating in the favor of Mike Tyson, right? For accuracy. Um, and 153.2% more misses for Jake Paul. And I don't know why the figures are different, like 152.5 better accuracy and less misses versus 153.2% more misses. You'd think it would be the same number, but apparently it's not for some reason, mathematical reason that ChatGPT knows that I don't. But that aside, like looking at the technical stats, which I think they're kind of in the middle. I think they're so close in the middle. Looking at just the way I've looked at this, um, but yeah, I think we can really take a lot from the event. I think to me, it's less about wanting people to get injured and watching the blood spill and wanting to see high intensity action. I think this whole event just shouted out to me like heart, like all the matches, right? And seeing the draw of the Mexicans, Americans, and then seeing Taylor steal the victory somehow, and what happened with Mike, um, and Jake. It's like a roller coaster ride in different directions and in different ways, like a stolen victory, a draw, and kind of a disappointing letdown because we're all hoping that Mike Tyson would have a strong moment. Like we all wanted just to see him like at least rock Jake Paul once, at least, right? Like have one defining moment of like his glory coming back and shining for one moment, right? We all wanted that, and unfortunately, we weren't graced with that. But what we were graced with was somebody who lasted for 16 minutes in front of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, over 100,000 people, probably. I don't know, 80,000. I don't know, a lot of people. And I personally have wrestled before WCWA. When I was 18, I was with NSWAE, another little that was an independent fed, and we're in like a civic center, and I was wrestling probably just in front of like 80 or 100 people. And even then, by the time I did my entrance, which back then involved the worm and a bit of dancing, but it wasn't that much. By the time I get to the ring, you just get gassed out. And when you got people watching and you're wrestling, like everything just feels more intense. Like you get energy from it, but at the same time, it can drain you, like because it's really intense and it's like you're giving everything your all, and it's less of a cap on like regulating your energy when it's that intense. It's like you lose control and you kind of just siphon your energy out. That's kind of how it felt like for me sometimes. And I got better at managing that. And maybe Mike Tyson is just something once you're used to wrestling in crowds, it doesn't have an effect. But the fact that he showed up in front of all those people, Um, and that he has a way better fucking accuracy rating, like 152.5% better accuracy rating than Jake Paul, more than twice his age. He lasted the full length without getting knocked down or TKO or anything, disqualified or anything else. Didn't lose any points. Okay, that should be noted. So good form. Like to me, he won just on the like I said, in terms of actual who caused more damage, Logan Paul landed more. Were they as hard as Tyson? Who knows? But he landed more and maybe did more damage. He hit the head a lot more. In terms of skill and you know, well, I keep forgetting the word. Being efficient, I'd say Mike Tyson won. In terms of successful aggression, okay, in one way, Jake Paul won. In another way, he lost. He missed 200 attempted punches. Mike Tyson only missed 79. So he missed 153.2% more compared. He 153% more. So I'd say in one way, Jake Paul lost in terms of successful aggression, and in another way, he won. And in this way, it's all really, it's kind of like, well, maybe there are no winners, maybe there are no losers, maybe there's just a perception. There's a perception in the mind of the judges, whoever arrived for that day. There's a perception in the mind of the competitors, and like me losing all of my matches and choosing to lose the belt at the end and everything, even though I could have won on paper and the crowd would have been disappointed. Like there's the competitor and the participants' perception. There's other people, the audience's perception, and we can place value in the perceptions of judges holding up a scorecard and be all upset about the outcome there. Um, or we can just realize it's all perceptions and be like, well, why am I going to waste time focusing on those three people who I don't even see the faces of, right? I didn't. Why am I going to care about them? I'm going to just place my perception on the thing that has value to me, the fight in this case, the boxing, and just connect with it and see what it means to me and what I think. And that, and you might decide that you don't even need to say that anyone's a winner or a loser, or that one must exist and therefore the other must exist. You might say that everyone's a winner in different ways and everyone's a loser in different ways, or there's no such thing as losing. But the point is, um it's up to you, and I would sooner invest it in the actual thing that I'm passionate about and that I'm engaged with. I'd rather invest my ideas of winning, if I must, into the performers, not some other people's opinion, and then that decides who's a winner to me. Um, but even then, I think like Mike has a chance skillfully of being draw, at least. I think with Jake Paul, if not way more skillful and efficient, and actually not missing 200 missiles, only missing 79 times. In terms of that, like, and I don't know, like I think what would be cool is if you actually had like an AI system that evaluated it and you came up with a more comprehensive scoring system. Like, don't just look at how many times somebody's throwing punches and how many times they connected out of those punches, right? Look at how many times things have landed. Look at how many times things, and don't just evaluate like the accuracy level out of that. Like, look at the percentage associated with the loss rating, the missed strikes, and maybe create like a negative point system every time they miss a strike. And I think if they accounted for non efficient and well managed resources, like you would if you're a general seeing someone just shooting off and wasting 200 missiles, right? If you factor that in, then I'd say um, the scores might look very different between Paul and Mike. If you look at skill in terms of managing actions and efficiency and not being so freaking wasteful, and just like whatever, I'd make it like every time you drop your guard, you lose zero point 0.2 points. You know what I mean? Every time, unless it's strategic. And you could have an AI, I was going to say, that can maybe watch the fight and determine all these things, take note, and in a real complex formula, and then determine based on not just successful aggression, but also like losing points for wasted actions and unsuccessful attempts. Yeah, and then let the AI decide. I'd much rather that than just the opinion of three human beings. I mean, only three, only fucking three. What the fuck? You know what I mean? Like this shit's going down in history. Only three. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Went on way longer than I needed to, but I appreciate you watching. And yeah, best of blessings to you, and I hope you're winning at life. And even if you're losing, I hope that you can frame your perception on what's going on, because that's really what matters most. That's what determines the real value of anything that happens outside or inside or in our own world or on the screen. It's about how you evaluate things and how you determine success or victory and all of this. So things you're losing, like anytime a cup empties, I always say a cup fills. There's always something to learn, even in loss, and therefore there's always something to love, nonetheless. Right? If you love learning, even when there's loss, there's something to learn and love, nonetheless. And when you really adopt that, and you realize that sometimes you might feel like you're in situations in life where you're stuck, where you got stuck in a phase, in a place, group of people, doing certain ritual things, and you're stuck there for a while, and you might feel like I wasted time, right? And I think like no, it's like you were, that's, you could look at that as like you were investing in whatever you learned in that situation, whatever that developed within you. You were investing to develop that. All right. Sometimes it might be patience that you're developing. Being stuck is really good at forcing someone to get good at being patient, get good at managing their motivation, and and at discerning when they hit that point, their limits, and knowing how to get moving with motivation. There's a lot of things you learn in the process sometimes of escaping that bubble and getting out and leaving it. That process isn't always a simple one. Typically, it isn't. In the process of leaving, there's so much to learn, and I think there's value in that too. And obviously, the more that you are stuck in a place or enmeshed in something, there's going to be greater value that you develop in terms of what you learn and your capacities and your abilities and your perspectives and your wisdom and everything. There's going to be more to develop, um, coming out of that in proportion to how much you're stuck. So to me, there's no real like negatives. Every negative has an equal, an opposing reaction. So just focus on the positive one. The negative reaction here is that some people with scorecards evaluated the matches this way and said these people won, these people lost. I look at the scorecard and even what they should be looking at, and I think, well, they did that wrong, especially with Serena versus Katie Taylor. And I decide for myself. You know what I mean? I reframe it. Um, there's different ways you can fill up cups, and there's different ways you can assess success, or who did better at something, or did I get value out of this experience, or was that disappointing to me? You know what I mean? It's all relative. Yeah, anyway, enough rambling. I'm tired. I should probably go to sleep. Cheers for watching, even though no one's probably going to stick around to the end. um I appreciate your time. And yeah, if you guys would ever like me to talk about anything else, let me know. I still think, yeah, Sereno. I want to finish on that. Like Amanda Sereno landing 49.3% more punches on Taylor, and controlling the ring and being the ring general, showing ring generalship, effective aggression, to the point where Taylor was just defensively backing away most of the time and bending forward and clinching all the time. Like that one, I'm pretty sure it must be contested, even just for the history books. I don't know how that can stick. I'd really like to hear the story there. Anyway, blessings to you guys, and love and light. Take it easy and give it hard.